Welcome to another episode of The Shift with Elena Agar. In this episode, I talk with Lawrence. He is the director of experiential learning at the City University of New York and Hubert Lehman College. So after a 27-year career in healthcare, he decided to shift towards higher education, and it's really been making a lot of impact, especially coming from industry to now higher education. And in this role, he's really done a lot of revolutionizing the educational landscape kind of work. And he's really looking at how to combine hard skills with the soft skills of presence and critical thinking and the work that he does with the young people in his college. He's also, again, just bringing that industry and academia together, which I think is so important because we have a lot of academia and, professors and people just like have spent their whole lives in academia, which is fine, but it helps to have some industry input as well. So he really just is doing a lot of different initiatives. He works with tech talent pipelines and upskilling programs. He's really trying to bridge the gap, between students graduating from college and then going into new industries like tech and all the amazing things that are happening within that right now. So really just focusing on transforming the students that come to his college. So I find him pretty impressive. I love the initiative that he's doing at his college. So if you want to know about how to better improve your higher education and some systems and some initiatives, I think he brings up a lot of practical ideas that they've done that's been successful. Enjoy. Lawrence, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you, Elena.
I'm excited to chat with you. My audience knows how passionate I am about higher education and, really kind of understanding what universities and institutions out there are doing differently. So I'm really excited to chat with you about that. But before we get into that, tell my audience a little bit about yourself, how you got to the role that you're in today, where you're leading on the I can never say this word, experiential learning.
Right.
I fail at it every time,
Me too. Experiential learning.
Yes, experiential learning. Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Sure. Hey, I'm Lawrence Fauntleroy. I spent about 27 years in healthcare IT specifically. And then I had a little tragedy in the family and then realized that I think I want to pivot and change my career. One of the things that they called the golden handcuffs was I had not finished college. I'm a little bit older, so I had jumped right from finding, oh, I love this career in healthcare to sticking with it, meeting the right people, didn't even know the word networking, and I had been doing it like my whole career, right? So when I realized that, look, I can't go anywhere, right? I really can't. I've made all these connections. I decided to take a chance on myself, kind of invest in myself, take a leap. And I quit my job with 27 years, all these contacts I made, and I went back to the college that I started at, which was Lehman College in the Bronx. And I just invested in myself. I was a different kind of student. I attempted to start a nonprofit. That went okay in the beginning. Then I got really buckled down in my studies. I double major in business and psychology, and I had a plan. And that plan was to get my bachelor's and my graduate degree in 3 years. And I think I came back with like 20 credits. So I had to do all of this work in 3 years. And when you have a plan, you lose a night's sleep and some hair and all that kind of stuff that I'm sure I did. But I stuck with it. And when I left, I probably knew all the deans on a first name basis because you're just more intentional when you've done it before and you understand why you're going to school, what you're doing it for, the things that you overlooked, your blind spots when you were in industry that you didn't see when I was hiring students. So they never let me go. And then there was a huge project that at the time Mayor de Blasio was doing. It was called CUNY 2X. It was connecting software engineers to the tech industry. It was kind of right up my alley because I had been working with engineers for the last 20 something years. And so hence we then were trying to open up a business school for the last 10 years. And when that business school finally opened, the deans decided that they wanted me to be the director of the business school for connecting industry partnerships and for experiential learning. So it just, sometimes the universe just aligns, right? When you just keep
Mm-hmm.
looking at things, the universe aligns. So it's been an unbelievable privilege to serve at my alma mater, to understand those students. And I came back to school in the morning. So I was like right on the ground level. I look like this every day. Oftentimes I come in class and students would be like, oh, you're the professor. I'd be like, nah, I'm here for the same thing you are. So that was fun. That was fun. And then again, it became more purpose. It was very purpose driven, and I'm here. I've been here 5 years, almost six. So it's been a great ride, and I'm on the alumni board, so I get to really have my hands in all these different kinds of things, which I really like.
Mm. And I think that's pretty unique because I think that's often what's missing in higher education today is not only that industry experience, but also understanding of what it looks like to be a student, an alumni, to be truly connected. And sure, like, it's hard to find somebody that can fit that criteria, but the fact that you're that is, I think, is very powerful. So talk to me a little bit more about, I guess, some of the things that you've came to realize coming from industry and being in higher education, and how do you really connect the two? Because now you're director of experiential learning. I said it right away. I don't know why I struggle with that
Good.
word.
I
I
did too.
struggle every time. Like really. So anyway, so you're director of this program now. So talk to me a little bit about like how do you see the connection? Like what's been the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, the delta between theory and practice is huge. It really is. And it's on both ends. It's okay, so I'm sitting here, I'm learning theory. This is what people were trained and taught. Went to school, got their PhDs in it, and then there's industry who, like I was at the other side of the house, was like, I'm not really can I want somebody that can do the job, and I want somebody that can work with people, that can communicate with people, that can critically think. And all those things happen in school, but let's just take my college, for example. Many of our students are coming to college to get a job, right? Like, period, end of story. This is why I'm here. So that delta becomes much more important when I go from theory to practice. And I think what we've done really, really well at the business schools, and we're young, we're almost two years old. What we've done is we've made everybody a stakeholder in that process. And I think that that to me is the key, right? This interdependence between two different kind of entities, right? So there's an interdependence between theory and there's interdependence between practice. And if
Mm,
we are stakeholders in that, then everybody's responsible for both the success and the failure. And I say that word failure from a learning perspective, right? Is that we're all kind of responsible for those things. And I think that that's where it starts. And that's harder to do than it is for me to say it. But I think what happens is you have to make the value proposition really mean something to both sides and not just one, right? Not just like, oh, I'm going to talk to an industry partner and go, we're doing XYZ the best over here, and not make sure that back at home we know exactly what we're trying to do. So that's been hard, but it's been kind of rewarding. We've been doing pretty well at the business school. Our dean is absolutely fabulous with making sure that there's this circle of accountability, that we do these retreats every single semester so that we don't keep we don't lose sight of where we want to be at. And so that's important.
mm. And I think it's an interesting time to be having this conversation because of everything that higher education has gone through over the last several years. And you're right, there has to be a clear connection and dialogue continuously between industry and higher education. And because people do go to college, right, for specific reasons. And my argument has always been, I don't have an issue with higher education, like traditional higher education school, like universities where they talk about the benefit of education, so on, but then don't sell careers. That's been my biggest issue, is like, if we're going to sell careers, then we need to invest in experiential learning. We need to invest in career development on university campuses. So talk to me a little bit more about kind of maybe some initiatives that you guys have, and maybe some successes if you that you've had, but also give us an insight about the profile of your student and alumni as well, so we can get some just context around it.
Sure. So I'll start with the latter first. So our,
Yeah.
our profile, we consider Hispanic Serving Institute because we have over 50% of our students are Hispanic. We also have a huge transfer population. So we have about 70% of our students coming in from community colleges. And so geographically, the way it works in the Bronx is so the CUNY system is 25 different colleges, community and senior colleges, but we're the only senior college, the only four-year college that sits in the borough of the Bronx. So our competition really is Fordham University, Manhattan College, Marist. Um, I'm thinking of a Pace. There's a couple of colleges that are private colleges that is our competition. The reason why a lot of our students choose us, because when they come out of the community college, we actually are really a straight bus line and a straight train line straight from those other two colleges. So it makes sense to them that they go there, and obviously the cost. So that pretty much is our student. I can talk about, we have housing insecurities. I can talk about all those different things that there are challenges at. But just as an alum, I always look at the talent, the perseverance first and foremost.
Mm,
We know the challenges of the Bronx. I think of the 62 counties in the Bronx, 62 counties in New York State, the Bronx oftentimes falls in last place with health outcomes on. So we have those kind of borough challenges, but there are an army of people working on trying to turn this thing around. So that's pretty much the make of our students. There's more women. I think it's 60-40 with women in our college. Um, we have 136 different cultures on our college campus. So incredibly, incredibly, incredibly diverse, which really makes it interesting on a day-to-day basis, right? Because the one
mm.
thing that I can see that's consistent is if you give these students an opportunity, perseverance, it just starts exploding. The students are like, this is what I'm here for. That's what I'm trying to turn around, or trying to level up. And so that's pretty much the makeup of our. So we have about 13,000 students attending, whether that is full-time, part-time, adults coming back to our graduate program. So on a yearly basis, we graduate about 3,500 to 4,000 new students.
Mm. That's pretty cool, and it's we'll follow up with that number in a bit. But it's interesting as you said there's more women. I think you said 60-40 ratio, because I do want to get into that in a bit, because I see that demographic changing as well, like the percentages. But before going into that, talk to me a little bit about just kind of some of the things, some of the initiatives that you have in place in terms of like experiential learning, and just what does that look like for people who are not familiar.
Our theory is you can't be what you can't see, right? Like if you can't see it, how do you understand where it is? So we try to bring that to you. So I'll talk about one initiative we ran, which calls our CUNY 2X Tech Talent Pipeline. So that basically was my team kind of going out making these industry partnerships, right? And then bringing those industry partnerships back in house. We would run a boot camp right after the semester ended, be this 30-day boot camp. But before the boot camp started, we would bring industry partners in and ask them to get involved in the boot camp. What kind of languages should our students learn? Which kind of programs should they learn? How often should they do X, Y, and Z? And then it was a 4-week boot camp, but on every Friday, we asked every single student, whatever company that they were going to be working with, they had to meet with the team on Friday. So Friday was called our HR day. So you would go in, you meet everybody on the company's team who you'd be working with. So this way, when you came into the summer internship, you already knew who folks were, what they were doing. You knew if they were going on vacation when they came back. And so that really created that stakeholder model. And then we turned over 200 students with an average salary of about $92,000. Before they actually got out of college, they were getting offer letters. And COVID kind of turned that, we kind of took a detour on that. But pre-COVID, those numbers were great. And we know what's happening in the tech industry, period, just with AI and all this kind of stuff. So I'm watching some of our students kind of pivot and go get different jobs or change their professional simply because of the effect of that. But before that, that was one of the programs. We now run a program in the business school that I'm leading called our upskilling program, which really is about introducing students to new industry. So if I say I want to be a programmer, instead of me going all the way in, I would go, let me take this 1 credit upskilling course that teaches me Python, or introduction to Python, an introduction to R. If I want to be a social media, let me take this 1 credit course that teaches me about social media marketing. So we create about 10 or 15, about 11 courses that give you an introduction to different industries. And we're obviously watching what industries people are invested in, and we'll take those industries, I'll go out and look for industries, subject matter experts, and ask them to come. So they don't need a PhD. They don't need a master's degree. If they have a regular undergraduate degree, but they're data analysts in Chase Bank, we're like, we want you to teach that class. And it's a
Mm,
wonderful course. It's about 10 weeks. But my hypothesis when we started this was, why don't we bring the community and bring the campus in the same classroom. So this way, the community could kind of see the new workforce, like these new students that were interested. In the classroom, hopefully there'd be some magic where you could see like what's happening out in the community, because the Bronx is known as the small business borough. 80% of businesses in the Bronx have 10 employees or less. So I kind of understood that, it'd be great to put this kind of ecosystem together. And now it's a staple in the business school. It's what we do. I call it our dollar menu because it's for one credit. And so
Mhm.
one credit courses, and sometimes students take 2 or 3 courses and they're diving into what programming looks like, what cybersecurity looks like. And that way we give them kind of a better route because I'm sorry, I'm talking long-winded, but because I talked about a huge transfer population. I always look at us as being an airport, right? And if you already have 1 degree, if you have your associate's degree, you're really looking for that connecting flight. You're really looking to see, okay, what gate
Mhm.
on and where's my, and it's our job to get you to your gate, get you your luggage to that gate. And once we get you up in the air, if it starts getting hard, it's nothing you can do. It's like, we got you, you're up there, we know you can do it. And then by the time you hit the runway, you're good. But by the time you land, you're good. So that's kind of my own personal theory. I walk around with that story all the time. I talk to deans about it, is that that's the way I look at it. I look at it as we have to get students to their next connecting flight, because this is only a temporary thing. This is not, you don't, traditionally you're not supposed to stay in school for 25 years. You're supposed to always be learning, but
Mhm.
really being on the campus for 25 years is not by design. So I look at it as, let's get them on their flight. Let's make sure they get to their gate rather first, get their luggage there, get them on their flight. And then that creates a great alumni base as well. So that
Mhm.
upskilling program has really, really taken off. I also lead a small Blackstone. The Blackstone group gave us some money from their foundation. So I lead a small entrepreneur group of like 20, 25 students, just trying to figure out what their next business venture is. One of the things that I love about running that program is that oftentimes they don't even know that their families are entrepreneurs, that they own a little small store, or they're selling pies on Sunday to the local churches. Like,
Mhm.
your grandmom's an entrepreneur, and kind of making them think about it a different way and go, oh, I can lean on her and ask her, like, how'd she get into this kind of business, and does she want to scale? And so really taking it really from their kitchen or from their sneaker closet to doing something bigger, is really important to us. And so I love doing that. So there's a couple of programs that I run there.
Hmm.
And
I love the, yeah.
I'm always in everybody's business, Elena. Always. On campus, I'm always in everybody's business.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
I'm just like, I'm always talking to deans. What are you guys doing over there? How can I connect this with this? I'm always,
Mhm.
I can't, I have 2 degrees from the school, so I kind of know everybody. So if I hear an idea, I'm like, let's go over here and talk to such and such and see if we can make that work. So that's what makes it a lot of fun.
And I appreciate that very much. I've worked in higher education for many years before I went to the corporate side, and also having been an entrepreneur in my past life just a little while ago. I very much appreciate the upskilling piece,
Mhm.
partially because what I've noticed, and I mean, at this point in higher education, it's just kind of like a thing I'm really passionate about. So I tend to go to a lot of conferences. And what I see, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of talk about things that should change. But I love it that although you've been there for just a few years, you were already able to launch all these very relative initiatives, because that is the biggest thing, right? Is a lot of the degrees become irrelevant, and
Mhm.
you've made it so that through these initiatives like the upskilling one, you actually have people on the ground, not your PhDs, not theory based people. There's a use for that as well. But then
Mhm.
there's use for real life business, education, technology education, AI, cybersecurity. You don't need a degree for that. So sometimes the most qualified to teach are the people just working in those jobs. So the fact that you're connecting those, I think is brilliant, because not only does it give the knowledge, but it also gives students a different perspective. It's not a theory based perspective. It's a little bit, I'm sure there's some theory to it, but it's also an insight to a person who is actually doing that job day to day. It's not a professor teaching research or theory about that topic,
Right.
right? It's a person in the job, which I think is powerful. So the fact that you have these, that dollar menu, as you call it, I think it's brilliant. It's yeah,
And
it's it
can
yeah,
I just tell you
yeah.
this thing that's interesting? I'll get faculty and staff go, can I take one of those upskilling courses? And I'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw you in. Don't worry about it. I'll put you. So we have even people,
Mm-hmm.
they want to take the course too because they understand the power of upskilling. They understand the power in
Mm-hmm.
knowing just a little bit more, or being interested in the industry, but really just taking a peek at it to see if they're curious that they want to go any further. So we have everybody taking the course, and that was by design.
Yeah, and for professors, I mean, absolutely, the faculty, it makes sense, right? It's like reverse mentorship almost,
Mhm.
right? It's like that reverse mentorship concept, and I love that. So kudos to you for making that happen because again, and a lot of institutions, and you guys, you're not a small. You have 13,000 students. That's not a small school by any means, right? So it's a good number of students. So that's impressive because a lot of times when you see, 10,000 plus, there's so many hierarchies and things just take years to get approved. By the time it gets approved, it's already irrelevant and you need a new program. Right,
Absolutely.
like so really like I mean it's I think it's an accomplishment on its own. And the entrepreneurship piece, I also see a lot of universities that are putting it just as a trendy thing, but the
Mhm.
fact that and I think in your case it's also unique because Bronx is, you said 80% or 85% small businesses.
10% is mostly
Yeah,
small.
so
10,
I
10
think it's,
closing
yeah,
back.
so it's very relevant. So people
Mhm.
can actually go and apply. So I think also where you are and the population that you have is very relevant, this course versus, I don't know, take any other part of the US where it's just not really, or it's like very corporate America. It might not be as relevant and
Right.
kind of attractive. So it's very tailored and that's really, really cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
No,
like that.
no, it's good. And the challenge with public education is that oftentimes we're holding on to the piggy bank because we get a lot of our money from state and from local. And so you're watching the administrations change and the politics change. And are they going to give money here? Are they not going to take? So you have to be innovative, right? And at the same time, you have to kind of hold on to the piggy bank. So it really does feel like sometimes we're making a dollar out of 15 cents. And I'll give you an example just from our Blackstone entrepreneur program. It's a small cohort, but I pressed upon them that, hey, I've saved some money, so we want to kind of bring this out a couple more years. And my thought process is the longer you give it to me, the more time I have to impress upon people that this is what we need. And so I'm always kind of be frugal with the funding so that I can understand how long I have, because I teased when I first got here because I didn't know about grants and how they work. It feels like a leased car. They give you grants for 3 years, and so you have this like lease car for 3 years, and then when the 3 years over, they don't really care how successful the program was. They're like, we're pulling out from here. So
Mm,
you bring that car back to the dealership, have
mm.
created any kind of sustainability where you can continue to run the program. So that's always the challenge. And it's a challenge for everybody because just because of the way things change and how quickly they change.
No, I can definitely imagine that. I want to go back to the percentage you mentioned, which is like there's more women,
Mhm.
enrolling versus men. And this is statistics. I'm sure this is kind of picking up in conversation. There's been a decline of men entering college education and therefore then also entering the workforce than it was before. So there seems to be I recently wrote about it, talking about just the fact that we're with all these DEI initiatives, which are, serve its purpose, but we're missing out on this very important population of young men, especially men of color, right, that
Mhm.
are just being left behind. And a lot of times, and there's the argument is like, well, what are they doing? And a lot of times, yes, they are going and starting their own businesses and doing freelance and doing entrepreneurship and stuff that doesn't require a 4 year degree. But in a lot of times, it's them living with their parents,
Mhm.
playing video games, completely disengaging from society. And then, I go down rabbit hole in this and, hopefully won't get into a rabbit hole today, but I go in the rabbit hole of then it impacts the society as a whole, right? Then we have more single women, more single men. We have, less children being born in America. And so there's a lot of societal impact overall across board. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's to your point, it's a huge topic, and there's so many different factors of, why this can be happening, what we could do better. I do think that overall education has to have a better value proposition. There has to be a reason why I come back to college, get a degree. It means something. So that has we have to figure that out. Are we, like, for example, we're doing a lot of online stuff. Can we repurpose some of the real estate where it makes it attractive to come back to school, period, right? I hear students always talk about they're not connected, but they want an online modality delivered to them, right? And so it's like, okay, but you want to be connected. So do we get them back here for other services like entrepreneurship, like figuring out other things, repurpose our real estate to say this is a place that you want to be, because sometimes just changing somebody's environment really kind of changes the way they think, and
Mm.
showing them different things that they can be really helps. Um, no, I mean, it is a hard, hard, hard things are hard. It's a hard thing to figure, and we can't figure it out. It just can't be education figuring it out. It has to be all those kind of different areas that you mentioned, right? Um,
Yeah.
you know, social work. I mean, just has to be everything has to be involved. Look, I think women are like, look. This is what we want. I think it's interesting on a micro level. Like when I run my entrepreneur program, I always get men will just sign up. Yes, they'll just sign up, right? Period. They'll just sign up. But when women sign up, they go, "What's the commitment? What days do I have to be here? If I'm not here on this day, then what happens?" Like they go through this whole thing, and then for our last two cohorts, at the end, our net has always been women. I think we had one guy finish, right?
Mm.
Um, and this particular cohort that we're running now, we really like strategically made sure that we were clear. I think we took it for granted that we felt good when people were asking the questions. How long is it for? What do we get? What's the prize money? But then when we really look behind the curtain, that was really only women asking that question. We realized men weren't the ones asking that question. And so this particular cohort, we really went behind and sat down and said, here is the commitment. And we also created a little small contract so that students could honor it. So I just think that women get it. I mean, they just get it. And I think men, not to say that we don't, I think sometimes we just think, okay, I got this will be all right, and then it gets
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming. And it could be some pride involved in just bailing out instead of saying, let me stick with it. So this is why at the business school, we've created a strong partnership with a group called Streetwise that is into mentoring, that is
Mm.
specific into almost fostering that mentorship, like that career mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
So we found that has been really helpful as well, because then we'll look at the data and get insight from it, and okay, everybody's showing up and who's not, and how do we reach out to them. So yeah, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to figure out. It's happening across the country.
Yeah.
And it could be across the world. I mean, as far as where I can look out from, it is happening a lot at our school and at CUNY as a whole. So uh,
Mm.
we all got to work on it. We really do.
Yeah, I think mentorship is a great step towards a solution. I think that's sort of, to your point, like there's a lot of pride in that. And sometimes men are not always willing to ask for help versus women who are like, I need help and I'm going to take full advantage of
Yeah,
everything that is offered to me here. And I'm not afraid to ask for it.
yeah,
So I think mentorship definitely is a big part of it. But also there's other societal things that we're not going to get into today, but the social media and all these other things, and the systems that are in place in the government. So there are bigger challenges. Like you made a good point. Like it takes a lot of different heads here to make change, right? But at least from my small impact, what I'd like to do is just at least keep talking about it, because I think we're not discussing it enough
right.
as professionals and enthusiasts in higher education and just the corporate world, right? So, but yeah, moving on to you. Talk to me a little bit more about what are you most excited about for the next year in this role? What are some things you're excited about?
So we just rolled out at the business school. We have this mobile app that I really got excited about. It's called Suitable, and what it does is it's built on what they call the NACE competency. So NACE is these 8 competencies that industry and education decided to say every student should have these 8 competencies before they graduate, and that's career self-development, leadership, professionalism, technology, communication. I'm probably off on 2 more: critical thinking, and I feel like there's something ethical, something, right? I
Mm-hmm.
all of these, but the infrastructure is built on that. So what I get to do is I get to create activities that are outside of the classroom. So one of the things that we did at the business school is we asked the faculty to go back, look at their curriculums, and show us what you think you cannot bring to the classroom. And I thought that that was really interesting that the dean came up with that. Show us what you cannot do. And one of the three things that immediately came out was career and self-development, professionalism, and leadership, right? Those three things, it was going to be hard to kind of teach with everything else they had going on. So when we purchased this platform, and it's a mobile app that students get to have right in their pocket, we were able to take those three things and create around those three competencies. So this way, students could get involved in activities that were adjacent to the classroom, that but really was that bridge from what I talked about earlier, from theory to practice. So we're built through this platform, we're building this bridge so that students now can, for example, we had Paul Canop, who's the KPMG CEO, at the school last week. It was an amazing success, had almost 150 students. He stayed forever. But the point was every student knew why they were coming there because they had it on the app. They knew that they were getting Korean self-development. Like they knew that these were the competencies that they had.
Mm,
The application also allows students to reflect. So they don't get approved, and it's a point system. So I don't give them points unless I've seen them reflect on their experience. And I think that that really, for me, is really moving the needle because it's an attention economy. And so if I'm
mhm,
not in that space, in that app space, and kind of that reward space and that incentive space, then I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot because that's the space, to your point about your social media, all the things that you get, right? So we've watched a 200% increase from semester to semester because now students are going, oh, well, I'll get 100 points for attending this. I get this. I'm looking at my competencies. They need my resume. They need this. They're connecting me to that. And so I'm excited about that. I think it's going to change not only the business school, but we're watching. I must have um, brought about 200 new students on board that are not business majors. So the platform was designed, we designed it for business majors, but the word got out. So I mean, students have friends that are not business majors. So it's like, can
mhm,
you get on the platform? And so our caveat was, if you take a business course, you can definitely get on the platform. So we added about 200 new students this semester. And I'm excited about that because it also gives me insight. I got a whole reporting structure on the back end. I can see what students are talking about, what interests them, what are they not coming to. So that just gives me a little bit more power, I feel, when I'm kind of going through why are we doing this, how are we doing it, how do we deliver a better education model. When I was in healthcare, there's this old saying in healthcare that says, the operation was successful, but the patient died, right? And so,
mhm,
like, I don't want that to happen, at least on my campus. I don't like, yeah, we can deliver education, but are the students learning? Are they connecting the industry? That's the bigger question, right? 120 credits is an outdated outcome. That doesn't tell you anything about the student. It just tells you that the
yeah.
behavior, that they have good behavior to go to school, finish their test, pass their test. But really, 120 credits is outdated. And so, are we delivering something where students are learning and is transferable to their industry that they want to be in?
Mm. I love it that out of those 8 competencies, I think you said,
Mhm.
uh, s- majority of them are so much just missing in the corporate world. Like I've been on both sides, as I mentioned, and being a recruiter on a corporate side now, I can tell you what I usually have to do with young talent whenever I'm hiring or interns or just young talent pipelines is I have to invest further resources once they're onboarded in professionalism, communication, critical thinking, all those things. So you hit a nail on the head with that one. I love it. Absolutely. I love it. As I hope young people that are listening are understanding how important those things are because we often discredit those topics, right? And I'm so happy to see that things are shifting because 5 years ago, 7 years ago, when you look at reports and you ask a CEO what are the top 10 skills they want to have for a new hire, those skills were not done. Maybe there'll be communication, maybe there's a
Right.
communication or critical thinking. Majority will be like digital literacy, IT, this and that, and like specific tools. And now when you ask CEOs today, 10 top things, 7 or 8 of those are around that, what you
Uh,
just mentioned.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
relevant, super relevant.
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, look, presence is just as important as hard skills. You got to have a presence. You have to
Yeah.
come, critical thinking, all those things are presence, and you have to come to the table with some sort of presence. So that's important.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. And again, I think that's the benefit of really having understanding between higher education and industry. So I'm really impressed with all the things you guys are doing. Before I ask you my last question, where can people follow you, find out what you're up to? Maybe somebody's listening is like, I'm a community college graduate. I'm in the Bronx area or, New York.
You can always find me on LinkedIn at Lawrence Fauntleroy. You can always find me on LinkedIn. That's pretty much where I'm at, Elena. I need to do better on LinkedIn. I can tell you that. I can tell you. But yeah, that's pretty much you can find me, and you can go on Lehman College's website, and under the business school, and you'll see me there at the business school and all the things that we're doing at the business school. So yeah, that's pretty much where you can definitely find me. And I'm and
Sounds
I'm,
good.
and I'm always trying to figure out how we connect and how we can, this whole thing is I'm trying to get as many partners in this process as I possibly can. So if anybody has any ideas, I'm so open to that as well.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure to include that in the show notes.
Mm.
Last question I ask all of my guests is, what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
I was reading something about, I used to coach basketball for a long time, and was reading one of these basketball books, and I said I can probably apply this to businesses. Like, who are you up against, right? So like
Mm,
when you come in and when you finish and trying to get your degree, what are you doing it for? Who's your opponent on the other side, right? And oftentimes it'll be different for every single person. It's different. It's this, it's for that. And I'm always saying, if you turn it back and look at what you're doing as the person, right? Look at that and say, okay, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for, I get a lot of students that do this just for family. Like if they're coming in from a different country, they have to do engineering or something related to medicine, but they want to be an artist, right? And so we're always dealing with that. So I'm always, I really want students to know why they're doing, what are they doing it for? And then can they pivot from that perspective, right? I do think that education is incredibly valuable. I think it's going to be a way with AI, is that there's going to be a way to vet, and it's going to be like, okay, there's all these different people that need jobs. And so I think it will start. Do you have an education? I think it'll start at skills. And skills and education are going to be hand in hand. And I think the skills are going to be just as valuable. I think there's the same value now. I think if you're hiring somebody, you're like, can this person do the job? I know I was that kind of a person where my boss was like, I don't really care if you're the hardest working person here. And oftentimes, you know, the person that's the hardest working person, there are benefits that come with that. So I think asking yourself, why are we doing this? Why am I here? What am I doing? And do I have any agency in making a change if it's not going the right way I want it
mm.
to go?
Beautiful. Well, Lawrence, thank you so much. Kudos to you again to the work that you're doing and the work that your school is doing. It's really really impressive and lots of interesting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. And you're doing good with experiential learning. So